let's get started. Welcome everyone to the Nonprofit Leadership Center 2025 webinar series. Today we have Vicky Westra from Neuroshifts joining us to do Beyond Diversity, creating a neuro-ready workplace. Thank you so much, Vicky. I'm just gonna go over the rules of the road with you all real quick. And then I'll let Vicky introduce herself and get started. To minimize background noise and distractions, all lines have been muted for the duration of the webinar. The session is being recorded and it will be available on our website in the next few days. We will also be sharing the slide deck whenever we post the recording, and you will get it in your email. You might have noticed I have the captions enabled. It is a Zoom accessibility feature. If you find them distracting, feel free to disable them in the bottom settings. We warmly welcome your questions. Please type them in the chat box as they come to you. At the end, we'll have 10 to 15 minutes for Vicky to answer them, as many as we're able to get to. And you can also unmute yourself and ask them out loud. And if you haven't already, feel free to share your name and what organization you're with in the chat box. We are so delighted to have you with us today, Vicky, and we look forward to a great informative webinar. On to you.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Isabella and the Tampa Bay Leadership Center, for allowing me to come on and talk about a topic that I'm very passionate about, and that's creating a neuro-ready workplace. And today is actually the last day of Autism Awareness Month. So it's during the month of April. April 2nd was actually World Autism Day. So it's a great time to come together and talk about this topic. And I'm super excited that we have so much interest in this, and so many nonprofits that really want to learn, not only as nonprofits that we create neuro-ready workplaces, but we're also many of us are serving neurodiverse communities. So again, I'm Vicky Westra, and I'm the CEO and founder of Neuroshifts. More importantly, I'm mom to Gabby, our daughter, and she is the reason why Neuroshifts exists. So before we dive into the presentation, I'm going to start off with just including this slide because I really love it. It just shows the cultural transformation that we're going through as organizations to move from inclusion to belonging. And this is from Deloitte Insights. So the first level is exclusion, right? Which says you are not welcome here. And then moving to tolerance, which says you are disliked, but you can be here. And then moving into acceptance, which we use acceptance quite a bit with autism. It's Autism Acceptance Month. And that says, I accept you even though you are different. And the fourth step, which is really what we are wanting to create, Neuroshifts, is, inclusion, which is belonging. And that says, I embrace you for whoever you are. And so today we're going to talk quite a bit about how we kind of can move as organizations to creating that kind of environment. So let me go to the agenda. And I am going to share with you my personal journey with autism because it's so relevant to the experiences that I have and what I've learned along the way, which I will share with you today. I'm going to talk about our vision, what we aspire to do through Neuroshifts. We're going to talk a little bit about what is neurodiversity, because there is some still misunderstanding when I say neurodiversity. I still get people saying, well, what exactly is that? So I'm going to share with you what that means. I'm going to review some of our current stats that we're seeing today and talk a little bit about the challenges that neurodiverse employees face today, as well as just some of the barriers that employers can experience to create a neuro-ready workplace and how they can overcome some of those barriers. and what the true benefits are to really dedicating your time, focus, and energy to doing this. Going to end with talking about some employer and some employee spotlights. And then, as Isabella said, we're going to leave time to cover some of your questions. So with that, and this is my happy adoption day, which was December 28th, 19, or excuse me, 25th. I've got this little thing in the 23rd, 1998. And this is our daughter, Gabby. And I will start by saying my husband, Pierre, and I, we met many, many years ago. We met by accident. And I mean that literally. I had had an accident, car accident, and he was my claims adjuster. And we hit it off on the phone. We eventually met, fell in love, got married, and very similar maybe to many of you, except maybe for the accident part. Um, we talked about our future and we talked about having a family, and we had our 5-year plan to start our family. Well, 3 years into it, we thought, we think we're ready now. But sometimes when you plan, God has a different plan. And that's what happened to us. So after many years of trying to conceive our own child, we turned to adoption. And we adopted our daughter from a Romanian orphanage, which I know we've all heard stories about. But we connected with a group in the Tampa Bay area that was bringing children over, and we saw them integrating very successfully. And my husband's grandmother is from that area, so we thought this is for us. And so we went through the whole process, which was a very long process. And we were supposed to receive our daughter Gabby when she was a little under 1 year old. Well, as it was habit with the delays, we didn't receive her until she was 2 years and 3 months. So this is a picture of her at 2 years and 3 months, very undersized, extremely delayed, not walking, not talking, a lot of sensory challenges at the time. And we thought primarily that was due to the orphanage setting. And so we went about trying to support her with a lot of, doctors, therapies, etc. And it was a very challenging time for our family. And I'm going to show this because we use this emotional guidance scale as part of our training now with families. And we pretty much spent a lot of time in the red zone. And that's really experiencing a lot of negative behaviors, a lot of stress and anxiety. I will share with you that a lot of families in our community are in the red zone. And that was, again, lack of understanding about what our children are experiencing, lack of knowledge about how can we support our child. And for those of you who are parents, I'm sure you can relate when your child is having a challenging time. It's really hard sometimes to stay in the green zone. But eventually, that was a choice I made, and it took me kind of getting to this bottom of this red zone scale. I was in a place of despair, fear about the future, what's going to happen, where are we going to find the right resources for our daughter. That and I have a spiritual background, so I said, gosh, you picked the wrong mom. I am not equipped to parent this child. It's just too difficult. And what I heard at that moment was, this is not here to harm you, this is here to serve you. And I knew that at that time I needed to really focus on, how do I equip myself to start rising into the green zone, start creating a sense of hope for the future, that there's a path for Gabby, there's a path for us as a family. And so I went through a lot of, again, spiritual, following spiritual teachers, cognitive behavioral therapy, learned a lot of holistic tools, and eventually started seeing my way into the green zone where, I could help our daughter. We had gone through a lot of testing, and finally, at the age of 4, is when we got the diagnosis of autism. A lot of different acronyms. I never heard of autism. It was in 2000, so you can imagine it's not as prevalent as it is right now. And so at this point, my husband followed me, in some of the things we were doing, and we started creating that positive, environment where we really were focused on supporting ourselves and supporting Gabby, and it really started to make a big difference. Now, during this time, I was in corporate America. I was still working. I had a senior level position, just as my husband did. And I felt called to leave my position. And so I ended up uh, starting a nonprofit for autism and a coffee company at the same time. And these two came together to form the first of its kind cafe called Artistas Cafe. And I was actually meeting with the general manager at Mercedes Benz at the time and was sharing with him some of the work we were doing. We were working with a school, a high school that was started a transition program, little coffee kiosk, and we were supporting them. And at the end of that meeting, the manager turns to me and said, "Why don't you give me a proposal to take over the cafe in our dealership?" And I said, "How would you feel if we trained and hired individuals that are diagnosed with autism?" And he said, "That would be really cool." And that was the divine moment. Again, I could have never thought of that, but those two came together again to form this cafe. And this really was a period of time for me. Our daughter is considered a minimal speaker. So she's part of the non speaking community, which made it very challenging for us to really understand what was going on in her world. She just didn't have the words to express it. And so, as I got in with this group of young adults, again, our first four baristas, you see, um, I was able to really I was so curious to find out what's happening in your world. Like, I really want to know. I'm so curious to find out how we can create a space where you feel comfortable and really can thrive. And so and that's what happened. And we did a lot of things right. Like, for example, we trained all the Mercedes-Benz employees and from the top level all the way down. Every single employee went through the training. So they were understanding what some of our baristas would possibly experience. We also did a multi-sensory training. So we did, pictures, we touched on all their senses. And I also, over time, incorporated the well-being tools that I had learned with this group. And it made a significant difference for them, not only how to manage their own mental and emotional well-being, but it really helped them to tap into their own unique abilities and what they desired to do and start having confidence in who they are. And so you could see we had a mobile cafe as well, where we went out and educated schools and the community about autism. And it was not infrequently that I would have somebody come up and say, "These individuals don't have autism," and that's just because of the stigma that exists today. Around autism and maybe what they're not capable of. But I can tell you they did an excellent job, and we trained gosh, 150 individuals that went through our program. And we got to work with them to really understand what they wanted to do and then try to make the right placements. And what I found out during that time, though, is that we need more employers, right? And sometimes it's the families. Sometimes the families are still in the red zone. And so I often hear from families what my child is not going to be capable of. They won't be able to work. They'll never get married. They'll never have children. They'll never. So it's a lot of limitations that we can put on our child and what their future could look like. And so this movement is really about empowering the individual that is neurodiverse, the families, because families can really advocate for our community, businesses. And again, a lot of us that have children are in the business world and we can advocate. So we can create a neuro-ready world that's inclusive and embracing of those with autism and other neurodiverse conditions. And this is all about helping our community have joyful, fulfilling, and purpose-driven lives. And it's not just the individual, it's the family as well, because statistics are very revealing about, what happens in a family that has a neurodiverse child. So together we can shatter barriers, foster inclusivity, and really change the trajectory of future generations. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about what is neurodiversity. And you could see a lot of different diagnoses here, and it's really centers around neurological differences, neurocognitive differences, neurodevelopmental differences. So what does that mean? It means their brains, they've actually done brain studies, their brains work different. They light up in different areas. They don't light up in some of the areas that a neurotypical brain would. Okay, and I'm just going to touch real quickly, just to share with you what some of these diagnoses, what some of the challenges are. So with autism, individuals with autism have some sensory challenges, motor and processing challenges, and then some social challenges as well. Dyslexia is really centered around reading difficulties, with spelling and writing and recognizing letter patterns. ADD is concentration difficulties, organization and time management challenges, or some hyperactivity. ADHD is attention and focus, hyperactivity, sometimes emotional regulation, and it can affect their social interactions. Anxiety disorders, and so since I showed you that chart, anxiety disorders, these are individuals that live oftentimes in the red zone. They have a persistent worry and fear. They feel disease with their situation, and that can interfere with daily activities and relationships. Tourette syndrome is involuntary motor and speech. Dyspraxia is motor skills, spatial awareness. Sometimes individuals don't know where their body is in space. Dyspraxia is um, again, that is dyspraxia, but apraxia is similar, and our daughter has apraxia as well, which is a disconnect between the mind and the body. And sometimes, again, their brain is functioning cognitively. They don't have any cognitive disability, but their body doesn't cooperate by letting them speak. Sometimes it's movement they don't want. Sometimes they can't achieve movement that they do want. So these are all conditions that are considered neurodiversity. Let me go to this next one here. And I wanted to go through this slide because embracing neurodiversity is really a green zone approach, right? It's the lens that we look through. And there was an Austrian pediatrician back in the 40s, and his name was Hans Asperger. Many of you may have heard the term Asperger. That was actually a condition that was, diagnosis that was given. Now it's just all autism spectrum disorder. But he was known for his early work on autism. And unlike some other researchers of his era, he believed that these children had unique strengths and abilities and believed that they could succeed in life with understanding and support. And so this approach was very different to what was in the 40s, where a lot of these children were institutionalized. And so it sees neurodiversity as a natural variation of the human brain. It believes that we should respect and accommodate differences instead of seeing them as disorders. It also believed that we should celebrate the unique perspectives and talents of these individuals that can contribute to a lot in our world, including innovation and problem solving. So here are some current statistics. So today, 1 in 31 children are diagnosed with autism. And so this is about 3% of our population of children that are 8 and under. So definitely, as we see more and more children coming in, the percentages are increasing. And when Gabby was diagnosed in the 20s, which was what, 20 years ago, um, it was 1 in 1,500. So you can see the significant increase that we're seeing right now with these diagnoses. And oftentimes people ask me, well, are there more children being diagnosed, or are we just getting better at diagnosing it? And I usually say both. We are certainly getting better at diagnosing it. We can diagnose now as in utero. They're having some studies now, but the average age is still about 4, which is when we got Gabby's diagnosis. So that's very interesting. But again, I think more people are aware of it. And so there is more diagnosis, and we're getting better at that. But at the same time, there's a lot that's happening in our environment that definitely affects these children a lot more. They have higher sensitivities. And so we're seeing the prevalence of that increase. Today, 20% of the people in the US are considered neurodivergent. And with a recent poll that they had, that number actually went up to 30% that disclosed that they felt that they were neurodivergent. So we definitely, if you just look at this number right now, there are already people that are in our work environment that are experiencing some form of neurodivergency. And I often ask at my presentations, how many people know someone touched by autism? That's, could be family, it could be you, could be neighbors, or people at work, and just about every hand goes up. So it is a very prevalent diagnosis. And if you think about how many millions of people that is, 20% is 68 million people. So again, this is something that we're already, we already have here and now. And so the more we learn, the more we can accommodate all the differences that individuals are experiencing. Now, 80%, and there's some fluctuations here, but according to Autism Speaks, only about 21% of individuals with autism are employed. Now, if you start looking at that too, that employment rate, I often think about the number of individuals who are underemployed. So there are jobs sometimes for people that, are deemed disabled as entry level jobs. And, we see a lot of community partners, wonderful community partners that hire people with unique abilities. Publix is a good one in our area. Um, but for many of these individuals, their unique talents and abilities are in certain areas that sometimes they feel they'll never be able to utilize that talent and ability. So, creating more spaces, working with more companies who are willing to become neuro-ready opens so many different opportunities for so many different individuals in this community. Now, we're going to do a little imagination exercise. So, what I want you to do is just take a minute, which is kind of nice to do anyway, since we teach you, about green zone. A good way to practice this is just to take some deep breaths. And if you can just take a moment, close your eyes. And I'm going to ask you for 3 different breaths in and out, just to breathe in to a count of 4, hold, release. Breathe in to count of 4. Hold. Release. One more time. Breathe in. Hold. Release. Okay, as I read through this, you're welcome to keep your eyes closed, but I want you to imagine that you're taking a 12-hour flight and you're stepping off a plane onto foreign soil where every one of your senses is heightened and challenged. As you navigate the bustling airport, an unending tide of foreign languages washes over you, each phrase indecipherable and intimidating, creating the uncomfortable feeling that you won't be able to communicate as easily as you're used to. The fluorescent lights in the airport are sharper and brighter than you've ever known. Their light flickering and intermittently in a suspenseful scene from a scary movie. The air carries a discordant orchestra of sounds, horns blaring, voices rising and falling, and the constant hum of the city that seems to seep into your skin. The bustling city streets display buildings that are architecturally both confusing and fascinating. At a street vendor, you're handed food with textures and flavors that dance bizarrely on your palate. Sweet, salty, bitter. Combinations are as disoriented as the unusual way that the locals eat. The crowds move in rhythms you can't quite grasp. Everyone knows the dance but you. Their movements make you feel like an extra in some strange play. You try to find a quiet corner, but noise reverberates off the walls, amplifying every sound. Footsteps echo more loudly, conversations buzz with intensity, and the traffic noises blare sharply, more sharply than ever. You just can't seem to escape it. Throughout the day, you find that the customs and norms differ vastly from what you've always known. A simple gesture or phrase takes on a new meaning here, leading to quizzical looks or awkward laughter. You feel you're constantly adapting, trying to navigate not only the environment, but also your own reactions to it. As dusk falls, you reflect on the day's experience, realizing that while everything feels unfamiliar now, with time and a little understanding and patience, it could unlock your potential to thrive. So, this exercise is just a glimpse into the continuous reality that many of our neurodiverse individuals face, experiencing a world that often feels custom made for others, yet is a constant challenge for them to navigate. So, hopefully, that can give you a little sense of some of these experiences. So, just to talk through the experiences that neurodiverse employees and individuals can face is, first of all, sensory sensitivities. And you experience that as you were going through this exercise. So things like lighting, just fluorescent lighting, for example, many can actually see the flickering of the ballast. So it looks like a strobe light. Right, and then loud noises, they have heightened sensitivity. So for many of them, things seem very magnified, and that's why you often see people wearing, noise canceling headsets or being able to, listen to music at the same time to drown it out. Strong smells can be challenging. Our daughter has the ability to connect with people's scents, like their perfumes, and connect with someone else who might be wearing that perfume. So she has a very heightened sense of smell, of sounds. She can hear. We used to go to the mall early on, and she could hear babies crying in the distance that I couldn't hear. So it's important for them to have tools and accommodations to deal with that. Communication difficulties, communication like sarcasm or abstract language can be very challenging for these individuals. They are very black and white, concrete in their communication. And we learned through our program that direct communication is the best way to connect with them. Rigid work environment. So there's some individuals, especially if it's their first job, that need some flexibility in schedules. And we found that out. We would to start, as they transitioned, for many of them, this was the first opportunity for a job. We would shorten their schedules, for example, or create flexible schedules or break time. So things like that, again, are very important to this group. Limited awareness of work environment. So often neurodiverse employees, again, if you think about the example I gave, sometimes their customs are different. So we have to think about them thinking about the world differently, processing information differently. And so the way we handle that is we'd always take the time to explain why certain processes are in place or procedures or why we go through this approach with our guests. So, difficulty with change. So, again, some individuals uh, that are neurodiverse might have difficulty in, immediate change. And this was often the case with our daughter at school. You know, um, come in to pick her up, and the teacher would say, "Oh gosh, today's been such a rough day. All the children were, just seemed very disruptive." And, I'd always kind of dig to find out, well, what's happening? And a lot of times it was just change of schedule without letting them know. So the way we'd handle that is we'd give them time to process schedule changes if we could, or procedural changes. We try to get them in the loop so they'd have a little bit more processing time. Task management, so effective executive functioning challenges on different tasks. And this is definitely an area where structured training can help. And we incorporated tell, show, and do because it really helped them to walk through the task. Again, touching all their senses. Some are visual learners, some are auditory learners, some are, tactile learners. But it also, can expand out to time management, prioritizing tasks without support. So sometimes our baristas would be at the sink washing out their pitcher from their milk, and a customer would come up. And so we'd always say, okay, that's your first priority. So we'd actually have them look to the counter to make sure that if a customer was there, they would stop that task and go to the next task. So things like this really can help. And once they have it locked in, they've got it locked in. So now we can talk about some of the barriers that can be in workplaces that uh, can affect really creating these type of truly neuro-ready environments. The first one is just the importance of leadership commitment from the top level down. If that's not there, it's really difficult to develop a culture that everybody understands, and especially since leaders set the direction, set the goals. And so commitment is really, really important, and those that don't have the commitment will have a more challenging time. Second is just limited awareness and education of neurodiversity. I often see this as, very similar to working with intergenerationally. So if we talk about Generation Z, or now it's Alpha, these are all communities that have different ways of being, and they look at things very differently. So the awareness and education is really important. What are the triggers? What are the motivators for each of these communities? Unconscious bias, we do a whole program on unconscious bias, and that's just perceived notions or stereotypes that we may have developed. Maybe it's because we interacted with one person, in our past, and now we've created this whole sense that everybody's like that. So sometimes we're not even conscious of it. Again, sometimes these are conscious, but other times we don't even know they're there. So it's really examining our biases, and especially, again, with this community or people that are considered, the disability community. We call it unique ability, but inflexible workplace culture, and those are environments that may be rigid or unwilling to change. This is how we've done it for all these years. And unfortunately, as we expand and we create space for more people, those are processes that we're going to have to look at and examine and say, okay, how do we make this process welcoming for everyone? Hiring practice is a big one for this community. Having limited resources, so programs like mentorship or employee resource groups are really important for this community. Just having someone that can, show them the ropes or take them under their wing or explain things to them, on a peer type level is really nice to have and can really make a big difference. And then lastly, microaggression and discrimination. And I sure hope this is still not happening in the workplace, but definitely this can lead to a hostile work environment. So those kind of environments are definitely not conducive to this community. So now we're going to talk about, what are the benefits to creating a neuro-ready workplace? What is the value for us? Well, first of all, these individuals bring some amazing, unique skill sets. They are gifted in all areas. I've seen it all we've worked with so many young adults, but some of them are mathematical geniuses. Some of them have great artistic ability or music, or they have science background. We had some obscure things, like one young man knew every stone. He studied, precious stones, and we'd have somebody come to the cafe, and inevitably he'd recognize the stone and where it was from. So, you know, again, part of this process is really understanding how we can put those unique abilities to work. So, how we can match them in the right roles that really, helps them to thrive with their unique talents and abilities. Many, like my daughter, also possess like great memories. They have recollection from the past. My daughter remembers everyone that she's ever interacted with, their birthdays, those types of things, or great ability to see patterns. So the Navy is actually using individuals with autism now to look at maps because they can really see the difference over time, or or coding differences that they can pick out. So increase productivity, and that's that they can be highly focused in their area of interest and are able to do a task that they love repetitively, which sometimes from a retention level, if you have a neurotypical person, could be bored over a little period of time. With this community, they like the repetition, many of them do. And I'm generalizing because everybody's a little different, but for the most part, that's what is a commonality. Increased innovation, and we talk a lot about fitting in or everybody being the same, but these individuals bring great innovation to the table. It's like Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton or Mozart. They were all, you know course, back then we really didn't have the diagnosis, but as we look now, they had a lot of the common traits of those with autism. And again, those are trendsetters, so they can bring more innovation to your business. You can increase your retention rates because people that are neurodiverse or on the autism spectrum don't necessarily like change. They like the repetition. They like their set schedules, and so they're not looking to leave. We had baristas that stayed with us for so many years. 8 years at the cafe, and we would grow their talent. We would expand their skill sets, but they really didn't have a desire to leave. Enhanced team dynamics. So when we were at Mercedes-Benz, it was amazing to see how everyone rallied around them. It really created a great sense of pride for those employees. It really enhanced, overall performance for our team as well as the team there, and it creates brand loyalty. So, this is a big community. So, if your company is supporting this community by dedicating the time and the resources, this community values that because we are in need of that, of more businesses, becoming part of this mission. So as we look at the crucial components in creating a neuro workplace, again, it starts with leadership, commitment, creating a culture that values differences from the top level. And it really is so much about education. It's specialized training for managers all the way to frontline employees. Again, the more people know, and we often got like from a frontline manager, I don't know how to deal with this individual. Like, I don't. And so sometimes the lack of knowledge is, you can tend to avoid it or you can tend to fear it. But with understanding comes the ability to know that hey, I know now, I'm equipped to deal with this. And that, as you get specialized training, then it's easier to understand how to create sensory friendly environments, how to create, the supportive networks, the employee groups that can support this community, how to create flexible policies and hiring practices. All of that is again, it's all about education and understanding how you and your business can do that. And obviously, Neuroshifts is one of the companies that's really committed and dedicated. We're passionate about that as well. We feel like, we've got a lot of experience in creating this type of environment ourselves. Again, we've made mistakes, but we've learned a lot of things on our journey. We've hired individuals that are neurodiverse for all sorts of different positions. So we're really passionate about helping other businesses do the same. We do have a Beyond Diversity Thriving and with a Neuro-Ready work team. It's a workshop. It's a full day workshop. We also do some training on creating green zone workplaces, which is really a mental and emotional health for leaders, which really helps with this. I share with you my journey to better emotional health and how it helped me be a better mom. And it's the same with us as leaders in organizations. If we're leading from the red zone, it can be really challenging. And then we also offer, consulting services. I just want to share a couple of examples for companies that have done this successfully. SAP is one. They started their Autism at Work program in 2013. And they're really focused on individuals that do data analysis, software training, and quality assurance. Their program is very focused on strengths. What strengths do these individuals have that we can match up with one of our positions? And that program has been very, very successful. Microsoft is another one. They have an autism hiring program that started in 2015. And they focus on changing, their recruitment processes, looking at how to assess skills in the individuals and the potential candidates. They change their interviewing process to accommodate people that are neurodiverse. Um, and they provide ongoing support through mentorship, training, and assistance. And then ultimately, Ernst and Young, and they have more of a neurodiverse program that's aimed at supporting individuals as part of their neurodiversity centers of excellence. And again, they also focus on unique strengths, talent by creating supportive and adaptive work environments. And they use individuals for a variety of roles, including AI now, cybersecurity, and other technology related fields. So these are just a few of the examples of companies that have dedicated the time, the energy, the focus to really creating these kind of neuro-ready spaces. So with that, and I think I'm going to have to take my earbuds off because it's not going to come through. So I wanted to. So I wanted to share this this little testimonial from Russell. Russell was one of our baristas. He was one of our first baristas. And we saw him grow so much during the process there. He actually became the supervisor of the cafe. We would hire somebody external that had cafe supervisory experience, but over time, he learned all the tasks associated and he was a great leader. And ultimately, he's gone to USF and has followed a marketing degree. But I just want to have you hear what Russell says.
Because most people, when they think of autism, they may think of somebody who's not able to function very well or is not able to work well in society, and that's not the case. Like me, for example, I have like a very minor case of autism, and I'm able to run a whole cafe by myself. So I wanted to show, that we got what it takes. We got what it takes.
Yes, that always brings tears to my eyes when I hear him, because hopefully you caught it too. But the pride, the confidence that that this builds in individuals who feel valued, who feel like they make a difference. And, especially today with autism and the stereotypes that go along with it, for many of these individuals, they don't feel like they're okay. Many have been bullied during school, like they don't fit in. Many of them don't want to be on the autism spectrum because of that. But we really worked to help them see how amazing and awesome they were. And then all things are possible. And today, our daughter, just to give you an update, we found this therapy called Spell to Communicate, and it's one of the enhanced features or technology is another area that is being explored for communication for those that are considered non-speakers or minimal speakers. And through that, we found that our daughter is a brilliant young lady. She is now advocating for the non-speaking community. Her and her friends are out to change the perception of non-speakers, which sometimes are considered non-intelligent or having a cognitive disability, which I will tell you, with all the individuals I've encountered in her group, brilliant minds. And so that's what we need, is individuals to feel good about themselves, what they can contribute, families to do the same, and businesses such as yours to really see the value of creating spaces that can truly accommodate this wonderful community. So we're proud to be a part of it. This is my husband, Pierre, and our daughter, Gabby. And she looks like she's about 15, but she's actually 28. So it's been quite the journey, and we are all green for her future. We don't know how everything is going to unfold, but we know there's a reason why she's here and with us, and we look for great things from our community. So I just want to thank you for your interest in this. It's, obviously very important for me, and to have people that, are interested enough to learn more is really meaningful for me. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for the nonprofit leadership for hosting this, and just shared my email with you, or our contact number, or website. So if you're interested in learning more, we'd love to have a conversation with you and see where you're at, but more importantly, see where you can go with this community. It can offer you, significant value to dedicate the time to become neuro-ready. So thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. And I know we have, I think, a question on the chat if you want to do some Q&A right now.
Hey, let me see if I can exit out of. Oh, you know what? I don't want to exit because we need to look at the chat. Well, I guess I could still look at the chat though. Let me stop share. All right. Let me go to the chat. Oh gosh. Okay. So let me see if I can scroll down here. Sorry, there's a lot of introduction. Thank you all for introducing yourself. That's awesome. All right. I think the recording, yes, it'll be shared. Right, Isabella?
Yes, we'll be sharing the
Okay.
recording and the slides. But Jessica had a question, so I can just read it off to you.
Oh, perfect. Yes, I just got to it. Go ahead.
Where do you recommend we share our call to artists and or volunteer opportunities?
There is an organization in the Tampa Bay area that specifically deals with artists with autism. And I will tell you, McDonald Training Center has a full art program that they offer. They have a gallery. There is another one, and now I'm forgetting the name of it, that's really dedicated to the art side of it. But McDonald Training Center, again, great artists. We've got some artwork from some of their talented artists. So, you may want to check them out. But again, if you put in, art and autism Tampa Bay, you should also get maybe some other possible connections there. All right, let's see. Oh, so glad. Yeah, USF. Yes, the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities, Disorders card is what I know them as. They have some really great programs. Park, thank you. They also have some art programs, so thank you all for jumping in here. Pyramid, yes, thank you. Pyramid is another program that really works with artists. We had so many artists that came through our program that we displayed art at the cafe. So many are talented artists. So that's another unique skill set that they bring. Oh, Isabella, do you see any other questions?
I don't see on the chat, and if anyone want to ask a question out loud, you can unmute yourself, or you can email Vicky afterwards. I know she shared her email.
Anything you all have on your mind? Anything you learned that you didn't know before?
If not, all right.
All right.
A big thank you to you, Vicky, for sharing this incredibly informative and thoughtful presentation. And thank you to everyone that joined us today. Like I said, we'll be sharing the recording and the slide deck in the next week or so. But feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, or to Vicky, and keep your eyes out for upcoming free webinars in the next months or so.
That's awesome.
Have a great
Yeah, and Andra asked, let me answer that real quick. So we do have a certification. It's a Neuro-Ready certified business that you can add to your, website and to all your information saying that you completed the training. So yeah.
Awesome.
And thank you all for all the positive comments, and again for being here. If there's any way that we can assist you on this journey, please get with us. You're welcome to email me directly. You've got my information, and I look forward to connecting. We're all part of this beautiful nonprofit community. So
yep, that's right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.